The agent hides under the table as 3 nightmarish, warped legs stomp wetly past him, all belonging to the same creature. A creature that had once been a human being. Each step makes a moist, slapping sound on the tiled floor of the laboratory. The lights went out long ago, back when the facility was first compromised. His eyes have adjusted, though seeing some of those things make him wish they hadn't. He ponders how many of those monsters are wandering the hallways, lurking in dark rooms. But he can't think about that right now. All he can try to do is remember how many shots he fired earlier. Does his Sig Sauer sidearm still have 6 bullets in the magazine, or only 3? In a high-stakes situation like this, those numbers matter. As the monster passes out of his range of vision, still hunting, he sees a drooping, fleshy limb drag along the floor behind it. He counts himself lucky that the scar tissue has already grown over the creature's eyes. It can't seem to smell him either. This might be his chance to escape. With the practiced dexterity of his physical training, he slides out from underneath the table and assesses his environment. There's only one of those things in here. It's stomping across the other side of the room, mercifully cast in shadow. He doesn't want to count the limbs. He just wants to get out of here and complete the mission, collect his prize. But as he turns to creep out, another headache strikes him. It hits with such force that his jaw locks up, and it takes everything in him not to scream. Instead, he squeezes the grip of his Sig Sauer and prays for salvation. He needs to get out of here. He needs to survive. As though the universe is answering his prayer, the headache subsides as quickly as it came on. He breathes a silent sigh of relief and takes a step forward, onto a discarded glass test tube. Crunch. The creature jerks towards him, looking with what might have once been its face. He's been spotted. He knows it. All hell is about to break loose. To most, this mission would have been a nightmare, but if you can believe it, the agent had enthusiastically volunteered. This job will either destroy his life or save it. Flashback a month. It didn't begin in a compromised Foundation containment site. It didn't begin in the briefing room or the helicopter en route. It started in a doctor's office, where a promising young agent of the SCP Foundation receives an awful diagnosis: Stage 4 cancer, an inoperable brain tumor, indicated by headaches, disordered thought, and mild seizures. Even by their most optimistic estimations, he doesn't have north of a year to live. All the monsters and maniacs he's encountered in the field, and it's some faulty genetics that sentences him to death. What a sick joke. And the punchline? He's got a pregnant wife he's about to widow, and an unborn child who's going to grow up fatherless. They throw him a condolences party at Site 19. The site director comforts him with the fact that his hefty Foundation life insurance policy will still apply if he dies of natural causes, so his family will be taken care of. He's as grateful as he can be under the circumstances, but none of it dulls the low ache that stays with him every moment of every day. The inexorable fact: he's going to die, and there's nothing he can do about it. Or is there? A few weeks after his diagnosis, he's once again called into the office by his site director. They've got a special mission, one befitting of someone in his circumstances, a dedicated and loyal dead man walking. They've received intelligence from a Foundation research facility in the Nevada desert where things have gone foobar. A few days earlier, they intercepted a distress signal, something about an anomalous pathogen breaking loose during an experiment, but the person sending the signal didn't live long enough to specify what anomaly they were dealing with. Figures. But there had been no further contact from the site since the first transmission, so they had every reason to believe that the site was essentially lost. The agent asks his superior if it's an extraction mission. The site director solemnly shakes his head, commenting that anyone still left in that site is better off dead by now. No, this mission is of a different nature entirely. The agent needs to get in there, manually activate the site's emergency nuclear warhead, and escape the detonation zone before the site and the 15 square miles around it are reduced to irradiated rubble. This isn't a mission. It's a death wish. He's ready to reject it. His time is already short. He doesn't want to spend the remainder of it dying in a plague-ridden hellhole. But that's when the site director makes his offer. I'm willing to make a special exception here, Agent. Because of your condition and the highly sensitive nature of this assignment, I'm going to give you one-time access to a unique incentive structure. If you're able to complete this mission as directed, I'll give you a dose of SCP-610. That gets the agent's attention. SCP-610, also known as the Panacea, is a small pill bottle containing anomalous medicine capable of curing anything. Literally anything. From rabies to smallpox to the common cold to, well, an inoperable brain tumor. It's a simple decision now. The agent has to say yes. Flash forward to the belly of the RAH-66 Comanche stealth helicopter, where the agent is being given his loadout by the handler en route to the clandestine site. He's given a Sig Sauer P320 Nitron compact handgun with a few magazines worth of ammo, some light body armor, and a Dracaris Gen 12 12-gauge shotgun with Dragon's Breath incendiary rounds. The handler assures him that whatever is in there, it doesn't like fire. Though he should only engage in combat as an emergency measure. If he was exposed to the pathogen that ravaged the base, his superiors would consider him lost and send someone else to do the job. Comforting to know, the agent thinks. It takes them a couple hours to reach the site. It's cordoned off by electric fences, looking to the untrained eye like an abandoned chemical plant. Neither he nor anybody else could even guess at the horrors waiting for him inside. Not long after, he rappels down from the helicopter onto the roof of the facility and finds an appropriate entry point, a ceiling hatch he's able to pry open with a utility knife. There's only darkness below. He is glad that they also gave him a small flashlight as he carefully lowers himself down into the hall. There's no turning back here. Either he'll earn back his life or lose it. The agent is methodical, gripping tight his Dracaris and maintaining situational awareness as he works deeper into the building. He studied the schematics given to him by the site director. He knows the layout about as well as his own childhood home. The manual activation panel for the on-site nuclear warhead was in the basement, so he'd need to work his way down. Things seemed normal enough at first, aside from the pervasive air of tension, the fear that there might be some horror lurking around every corner. He's sweating now, but not just because he's worried. It's baking hot in there, like someone had cranked the thermostat up to maximum. There was no power for the lights, but they were still blasting the heater? As he gets deeper into the building, he notices that the very structure of the facility is changing. The walls of some rooms have a strange, fleshy texture. Vein-like structures slither across the ceilings. Desks, lamps, and computers are covered in red raw pustules. It looks like the very rooms around him are afflicted with a malignant cancer. He imagines that the inside of his brain doesn't look much different. Does whatever pathogen they unleashed in here even affect the building? This must be why they want to blow the whole place sky high. His musing is interrupted by a pained whimper down one of the darkened hallways. He instinctually raises his flashlight and sees a limping human figure advancing down the hall towards him.
Help me, please.
He looks sicker than any man the agent has ever seen. He's dressed in the familiar lab coat of a Foundation researcher, but his face and hands have been struck down by the most revolting rashes the agent has ever seen. His skin looks like a giant, livid scab with pinprick orifices for his eyes and mouth. He's wheezing. The agent imagines the inside of his lungs look even worse.
Please, you've got to get me out of here.
Without warning, the infected man lunges forward, trying to close the distance between himself and the agent. He's fast, but the agent is faster. He raises his Dracaris and unleashes a Dragon's Breath round into the sick man's chest, igniting him. He drops to the ground, screaming and spasming, but without a moment's hesitation, the agent fires off another round into his head. The infected researcher dies, but that's when the real screaming starts. Alerted by the sound of the shotgun blasts, heavy footsteps erupt all around the facility, fleshy and irregular, visceral. They're all zeroing in on the agent's location, and he needs to move fast if he wants any hope of getting out of here alive and getting his cure. He finds the nearest stairwell, kicks open the door, and starts descending, jumping 3 steps at a time. There's a cacophony of awful sounds from the flights above him, but he can't stop and think about that. There is only the mission. But the inhabitants of the site have other ideas. An awful red shape bursts out of a doorway on the flight below him, freezing the agent in place with sheer horror. It looks like the vague memory of a person fused with the dumpster behind a butcher's shop. So many limbs, arms, legs, tentacles, claws, faces. A fever dream incarnate. Of course, the agent wastes no time in giving it hell. He raises his Dracaris and unleashes several Dragon's Breath blasts, lighting up the stairwell in brilliant magnesium flashes and causing the monster to scream in horror. But this thing isn't like the researcher. It has the power to fight back. A flaming tendril shoots forward and wraps around the shotgun, dragging the weapon out of the agent's hand before he can react. In the moment of clarity brought on by the shock, he hears that the monsters behind him have caught up. A legion of horribles, things that had once been human in various stages of horrid mutation. Red guts and dripping pus abound. He pulls the Sig Sauer from his holster and opens fire into the crowd, hoping to buy himself some time. There's a fire exit next to him, and he had something far worse than fire hot on his heels. The agent bursts through the door and runs as fast as he possibly can, with the victims of the anomalous pathogen trailing quickly behind him. They don't seem smart, but there's enough of them that their intelligence doesn't matter. He doesn't have the ammo to kill them all, no matter how you slice it. He needs to lose them, then get to the nuke. He finds his way into a lab to wait out the chase. We find ourselves coming full circle, back to the start of our tale. The agent, in his attempt to escape, has stepped on a test tube and alerted one of his mutant pursuers to his presence. And in case you were wondering, he did only have 3 bullets left in the Sig. The monster lets out an ear-piercing shriek that's sure to alert all the others and makes a sudden dash towards the agent. He unloads the remaining few rounds into the monster's center mass and sprints towards the door, pulling on the fire alarm on the way out. In that instant, the alarm starts blaring all across the building, sending another spike of pain through his tumor-infested head. But at least it'll make it harder for the blind among the monsters to detect him by sound. Short-term pain for long-term gain. He busts a nearby glass box with his elbow and yanks out the fire axe within. It's his only line of defense now. Remembering the schematics in his mind, he runs for his life, using the axe to ward off the shrieking, once-human beasts as best he can. Floor by floor, he descends towards the basement, never fully losing the pursuers. He runs through hall after hall, door after door, until he reaches the secure bulkhead for the basement control room and punches in the code. Soon, he's standing before a vast control panel and remembers exactly the sequence he needs to activate the on-site nuclear warhead. The agent puts in the code exactly as he was told, and as he does so, he becomes absently aware of a strange itching sensation on his arm. He turns and sees with horror that one of the creatures had clawed through his suit, leaving a red rash against his skin. He'd been infected. But that didn't matter. If he could activate the nuke and head back, the SCP-610 pill would cure his brain tumor and this mysterious pathogen. All he needed to do was complete his mission. Then he'd... With the push of a button, the lights across the facility switch on and start flashing red. A voice over the intercom crows that the on-site nuclear warhead has been activated and that the entire facility would be entering lockdown in the lead up to the explosion. Lockdown? And that's when it hits him. He was never meant to come home. He'd been given a false promise and sent on a mission with no hope. He'd just be one more person counted among the sick and the dead when the bomb went off. It was so beautifully cruel, he can't help but laugh to himself. He figures when push comes to shove, there's only ever one cure for a disease like this. Boom. The human body can be a terrifying concept. You don't know if the thing that will one day kill you is already lurking deep within your flesh, whether it's a misfolded protein in your brain that will one day become a deadly prion disease, the clogged blood vessel that might someday make itself known as a heart attack or brain aneurysm, or perhaps the tiny error in cell division that could manifest as any number of cancers. But compared to SCP-610, codenamed the Flesh That Hates, these are all about as severe as a case of chickenpox. SCP-610 is one of the most virulent and deadly anomalous pathogens the SCP Foundation has ever encountered, capable of causing extreme and dangerous physiological changes to its victims. These effects begin with rashes, itching, lesions, and increased sensitivity of the skin, slowly but surely increasing in severity hour by hour as the disease progresses. Within 3 hours of initial infection, blemishes resembling scar tissue will appear across the chests, backs, and torsos of the victims, expanding to their limbs and extremities over the next hour or so. No victim of SCP-610 has ever survived beyond 5 hours. In high-temperature environments, the infection rate is even faster, with the shortest time to date from infection to full conversion being only a handful of minutes. Once full infection is attained, all vital signs will cease for 3 minutes. At this point, the body's advanced scar tissue will take on a life of its own, with vital signs being reported at 3 to 4 times the rate of non-anomalous humans. But they won't appear human for long after that. The mutations continue to advance, becoming considerably more severe. Fleshy limbs will extend, multiply, and split. Their body may warp. Their head may shift or elongate. In some extreme cases, infectees have become static and started to grow out into their environment, covering the surrounding area in tumorous masses, making it more hospitable for fellow victims of the flesh that hates. Highly risky Foundation observation has shown us that the disease seems perfectly designed to propagate itself. In the early stages, when the original infected human is still alive, it will seek out aid from others, hoping for a reprieve from its condition, increasing infection risk. In later stages, the creatures that were once human will aggressively pursue any uninfected people who enter their sensory range. Skin-to-skin contact is the most common vector of infection, but infection via the respiratory system is even more rapid and dangerous. The anomaly is believed to be connected to one of the more dangerous groups of interest the SCP Foundation are aware of, an ancient fringe religious organization known as the Sarkissists. These loosely affiliated cults worship flesh, disease, and corruption in all its forms, and some of the nastier anomalies related to so-called body horror and disease can be attributed to their rituals. However, given their inclinations, it's highly unlikely that even if a connection could be proven, a Sarkissist would give up any information that might lead to the SCP Foundation synthesizing some kind of treatment or cure for SCP-610, even if the Foundation resorted to torture. In fact, knowing the Sarkissists' unconventional views on pain and suffering, they might even enjoy it. Initial reports of the flesh that hates were not actually produced by the SCP Foundation, but the Russian government. After reports of an unusual number of disappearances in the area around Lake Baikal in southern Siberia. It's a rural area, and multiple alarm bells went off when the farmers were sending in reports of neighboring farms being abandoned, their inhabitants unaccounted for. Local police were dispatched to look into the matter. They never came back. Regional police were sent out to locate the missing local police. They disappeared too. When members of the Federal Security Service were sent in, and they failed to report back, it became clear that something out of the ordinary was going on. The Foundation were quick to cordon off the affected areas, where people infected by SCP-610 had converged into pseudo-communities. Remote robots and drones are permitted to enter these areas for observation, but aren't permitted to leave, to reduce the risk of the infection spreading. Due to both the highly contagious nature of the virus and the highly aggressive behavior of those infected, this anomaly has been given the KETER class, and a severe containment mandate to match. Because of the size of the affected areas, isolation and quarantine have been deemed the most viable containment options. If any infected creatures make their way towards the perimeter of the quarantine zone, the accepted procedure is to pepper them with small arms fire until immobile, before destroying the body with incendiary weapons or long-range explosive munitions. Even getting close to the creatures is considered too great a risk to be acceptable. Anyone infected is to be considered lost. They'll be euthanized and incinerated. Anyone within a 3-meter range of one of the infected needs to be quarantined for several hours to ensure that they haven't become a vector. Scorched Earth policies are the standard operating procedure for SCP-610. You may think that this is cruel on the Foundation's part, but it's a policy you'll agree with when you consider that the alternative is hearing a fleshy tendril slithering against your window tonight. If ever SCP-610 breached containment and reached a densely populated area, it wouldn't be long before human beings ceased to be the dominant force on this planet. As I said earlier, the human body can be a terrifying thing, and anomalies like SCP-610 can exploit this primal terror of the self, this bestial burden we all share, because it reminds us of the most frightening and universal fact about our bodies. They won't always be ours. Check out the DrBob Patreon and become a junior researcher today. Now go and watch another entry from the files of DrBob, like SCP-5056, The Constant Companions.